Hello, and a very warm welcome to the countdown event to the Generation Equality Forum titled Investing in Menstruation is Investing in Gender Equality. My name is Ina Yoga. I'm your moderator for today. I'm the International Coordinator for Menstrual Hygiene Day, working for WASH United. Event is co-organized by WASH United MHD in partnership with the Global Menstrual Collective. Just a few notes if you are not familiar with these two platforms. So MHD is a global day for action and awareness on menstrual health and hygiene, celebrated every year on 28 May, bringing together more than 800 partner organizations and many more. WASH United initiated the day in 2014, and the day has been growing since with a record-breaking reach in 2021. Just to note that MHD is also active in awareness, advocacy, and knowledge management all year round, such as this event. The Global Menstrual Collective includes representatives from UN organizations, academia, government, funders, the private sectors, and existing coalitions, advocacy group, and youth focus organization, faith-based groups, and independent consultants. The GMC's, so for short for Global Menstrual Collective's, mission is to build and use its collective strength to drive and guide investment in menstrual health and hygiene based on evidence. So a warm welcome. And before we start officially with the event, a few housekeeping notes, and that is the event is going to be recorded. So by participating here, you give us permission to do so. If not, I want to kindly ask you to leave. Please mute your microphone, and you can turn off or on your camera, but we recommend to turn it off to save your bandwidth. Please use the chat box actively. Introduce yourself, where you're based, which organization you represent, and particularly we would like to know if you're part already of the community of practice on menstrual health and hygiene, or if you found the event through the Generation Equality. Of course, if you have questions. So, we have put together a 45-minute session, which is hopefully short and energetic because we have a whole marathon of online events ahead of us for the Generation Equality Forum. So while menstrual health and hygiene is truly a cross-cutting issue, touching upon education, health, water and sanitation, hygiene, the workplace, and the environment, we will focus today on bodily autonomy and sexual and reproductive health and rights, which is the action coalition of the Generation Equality Forum the topic is best connected to. Our objective of this session is to highlight how investment in MHH is essential to achieve the GEF's acceleration plan for gender equality through integrated menstrual health and hygiene into the actions identified by the Bodily Autonomy and Srhr Action Coalition. That said, we really acknowledge there are also linkages to the action coalitions on feminist movements, economic justice and rights, and innovation. And therefore, it is of utter importance to bring the attention to the issue of menstruation to the Generation Equality Forum. And this countdown event should ignite you all to do so in the coming days. And of course, beyond the Generation Equality Forum. Our agenda has 3 parts, as you can see here. We start with a keynote by Vivian Onano. She's a social entrepreneur, founder, director of Leading Lights Initiative, but also a fierce advocate and advocate for gender equality. She will make the case how addressing menstruation is key in contributing to gender equality. In the second block, we want to focus on the solutions linking MHH to bodily autonomy and Srhr. We start with Renata Talarico. She's the youth team lead and SYP Regional Coordinator for UNFPA East and Southern Africa Regional Office. She will provide key input how the different aspects of the Bodily, Autonomy, and Srhr group link to menstrual health. This coincides with a just recently technical guide that she will also touch base upon. Then we highlight 3 solutions and experiences from member of the Global Menstrual Collective. Hilda Alberta, who is the Director of Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning from Zimavi. She will share their programmatic experience on menstrual health and hygiene and comprehensive sexuality education. Tino Vonga Mavayo, she's the Adolescent Girls and Young Women Communication Specialist for PSI Zimbabwe, shares how they link menstruation and contraceptive services and education. And we closed that part with a video from WaterAid, how participatory photography and storytelling is enabling voices and change and norm change in Nepal. The last block is bringing this all together. We have Torsten Kiefer, who is the founder and CEO of Yours United, who's taking stock where MHM progress has been made and what's needed to fulfill the potential for women and girls and all people who menstruate. Therese Mahan, who's the co-coordinator of the Global Menstrual Collective, working also for WaterAid, is closing the session with sharing the commitment and a statement by the Global Menstrual Collective, which is then also our key messages for you to share during the GF. We aim for the input to be 45 minutes. And if they're interested in question and answers and a discussion afterwards, we are committed to stay another 15 minutes till the hour. So without further ado, I already talked too much. I'm handing over to Vivian. Vivian, very much welcome to us, and please let us know your keynote speech. I'm looking forward to it. I have to unmute you. 1 second. I need to go in here. 1 second. Here you go.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you for the kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. My name is Vivian Onano. I'm a women and girls advocate. I am thrilled and honored to join you today for this important discussion on investing in menstruation is investing in gender equality. I am grateful to Yours United and Global Menstrual Collective for literally fighting very hard to ensure that menstrual health and hygiene is part of the Generation Equality Forum. This countdown event in the build-up to the Generation Equality Forum will be the only event shining a spotlight on this issue that affects more than 50% of the global population at the world's leading gender equality conference. 26 years after the Beijing Women's Conference, menstrual health and hygiene has not made it on the agenda for the main event. Nonetheless, I am glad to participate at this countdown event to join forces and raise our voices loud and clear that menstruation matters. The issue on menstrual health and hygiene cuts across all the 6 themes of the Generation Equality Action Coalitions. We know that without access to information and proper menstrual hygiene products, many girls drop out of school. Without an education, it will be impossible for them to know about their rights and defend themselves against gender violence, seek opportunities to be economically empowered, know how to use technology to advance their causes and create opportunities for themselves, or even be able to address climate change. And all this will lead to no progress on achieving gender equality. Hence, why it's important to call out our leaders and reinforce the importance of urgently investing resources to address period poverty and stigmatization that comes with it. Through my work as an advocate, I've been fortunate to travel vastly across the African continent and beyond. I have visited schools to speak to young girls, and normally the first ask that I get from the teachers and girls themselves is a request for a donation of sanitary products so that girls can stay in school. I have listened to stories of young girls who have sold their bodies to buy sanitary products so that they could stay in school, and those who have completely dropped out once they reach puberty. COVID-19 has made it more difficult for young girls to access menstrual hygiene products or the psychological support that they may need when they start their menses. It breaks my heart because I know very well that without an education, these young girls will continue to wallow in poverty. A bright future could be dimmed just because of a biological cycle. It really frustrates me. As a youth ambassador for WaterAid, I traveled with them to Burkina Faso and Mali to see the work that they were doing around menstrual health and hygiene. I was stunned to find out that it was a taboo to teach about menstruation in schools, which made it difficult for the young girls to have access to information or know where to seek help once they reach puberty. WaterAid with their local partners were working around the clock to educate the community leaders and engage government officials to realize the importance of MHH in advancing the women and girls issues in their society. A girl that is empowered to manage her menstruation safely, hygienically, with confidence, and without shame is more likely to stay in school once she reaches puberty. According to UNICEF, there are 1.8 billion women and girls of reproductive age. Out of those, 500 million worldwide do not have what they need to manage their menstruation safely, hygienically, and without shame. They lack information about menstruation, access to menstrual products, or period-friendly wash facilities, or they may be limited by taboos and stigma surrounding the issue. As global leaders come together this week at the Generation Equality Forum to commemorate 26 years since the Beijing Women's Conference, let us use the power of our voices to urge them to prioritize on investing in menstrual health and hygiene as a prudent investment in gender equality. To concretely address the issue on bodily autonomy and sexual and reproductive health and rights of women and girls, we must start by ensuring that period poverty is addressed and menstruation is no longer a shame, but a biological cycle that is fully embraced by all and the necessary investments are put in place. Just because menstrual health and hygiene is not featured on the forum's program, and this is probably the only event on the issue, we should not be deterred, but use this opportunity to fuel up our energy to mobilize and collectively hold our leaders accountable. Whilst we are at it, we should also remember to work with our community and religious leaders to address the taboos and stigma around this important biological cycle, because the buy-in is very important in shaping and influencing policies around MHH at a country level. Menstrual health and hygiene is critical to achieving gender equality, period. To achieve a gender equal world, we need to step up action and investment in menstrual health and hygiene now. To quote Jennifer Srhr, Senior Director, World Bank Water Global Practice, investing in good menstrual hygiene management to enable women and girls reach their full potential is a critical measure to build a nation's human capital over time. Thank you again for listening to me and continue the great work that you're doing to address this issue. We are the Generation Equality, and it's only through our collective work that we shall be able to eradicate period poverty and ensure that girls do not lose their voice and confidence because of a biological cycle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivian. We couldn't have wished for a better keynote opening. You addressed all the relevant issue around what is needed, what's been done, but also what's needed to move this forward. And again, yeah, we're very glad that we have this countdown event. Maybe it's at an opportune time that we now, as you said, we're ignited and can raise our voices then throughout the next days and beyond. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you, Ina.
As I mentioned, we aim really to link it to the most relevant action group, which is Bodily, Autonomy and Srhr. And therefore, I'm inviting now Renata Tallarico to present to us how this really actually links in practice and what we can take away from it. Renata, over to you. One second. I think you can unmute yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Ina?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I hope you can see my screen too.
Yes, we can too.
Great. Thank you very much for having me. It is my pleasure today to share with you some insights around the integration of menstrual health and sexual reproductive health, specifically policy and programs according to a recently launched technical guidance during the Africa Coalition Menstrual Health Symposium that was held in Eastern Southern Africa last May. I'll move on, and yes. So now, before we get into the actual technical guidance, I would like to share with you some insights around menstrual health and what really that entails when it comes to human rights. So we know there is a human rights imperative when it comes to menstrual health. For instance, we have references to the right to health, the right to education, the right to work, the right to non-discrimination and gender equality, and the right to water and sanitation. It is clear that sexual and reproductive health rights are a constellation of civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights, as recognized in existing national laws and international human rights instruments. And menstruation is fundamental to the fulfillment of those rights. When the human rights of girls and women and people who menstruate are met, then are more likely to experience menstruation and sexual reproductive health in a safe, healthy, and dignified manner. And it goes without saying that menstrual health is key in the achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals. And this links very well with a new definition of menstrual health that was recently launched, I believe in May. You can see below the definition, also the reference that I invite all of you to read, because it really explains how we moved into this new definition that really draws its foundation in the right to health. And it reads as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of the disease or infirmity in relation to the menstrual cycle. Achieving menstrual health implies that women, girls, and older people who experience menstrual cycle throughout a life course are able to access timely age-appropriate information about the menstrual cycle, menstruation, self-care, and hygiene practices. Care of their bodies during menstruation, including access to materials and wash services, but also access to diagnosis, treatment, and care for menstrual cycle related to discomforts and disorders, but also free of stigma, and also free to decide whether or how to participate in all spheres of life during all phases of menstrual cycle. It is very clear how bodily autonomy and self-determination are permeating the whole concept of menstrual health. Now, while we talk about the integration with sexual reproductive health, we look at social cultural intersections and biological intersections. So starting with the social cultural intersection, unfortunately, given the time, I wouldn't have the time to dig down into each one of the elements as you see on the slide, but just to mention a few. Issues of menstrual knowledge and sexual reproductive health, issues of menstruation and school and workplace participation, period poverty and its implications when it comes to sexual reproductive health. And it goes also without saying the aspects of menstruation, psychosocial well-being, and sexual reproductive health. And this from a social cultural intersection. Let's not forget that in many cases, actually, the case is that menstruation signs puberty. And in many cultures, that means you are ready to get married. And that's a cultural aspect of it. There are linkages between, for instance, child marriage and menstruation, menarche specifically, that we also need to acknowledge. Now, in terms of biological intersections, we can look into some aspects of it: contraception, family planning, and menstrual health, menstrual irregularities and sexual reproductive health, and also maternal health and menstrual health. So all this really shows how it is very normal that menstrual health should be integrated within SRH programs, because there are lots of aspects that interlinks with sexual reproductive health and vice versa. Now, after this brief chapeau in relation to the links between sexual reproductive health and menstrual health, I'm going to present some insights around the technical guidance that you may access either on the UNFPA Eastern Southern Africa Regional Office website or on the Africa Coalition on Menstrual Health website, which is acmhm.org. This section recommends practical ways to create a holistic approach to integrating menstrual health and sexual reproductive health programs and policies. and also draws the attention to nascent evidence-based integrated approaches, because unfortunately out there, there's very little already evaluated. But we have tried to come up with a guidance that would draw its foundation from best or promising practices in terms of integration. So let's start with what works as we know it today. So what we know that education and awareness, products and supplies, sanitation facilities, menstrual health policies, and hardware and software work. Now let's dig down into what exactly that means. Without going through all of them, I'll pick some. For instance, education awareness and menstrual health. It's very relevant because that facilitates access to accurate, timely, and appropriate information on menstrual cycle, how to manage menstruation without discomfort or fear, and how to tackle discriminatory cultural and social perceptions and practices related to menstruation. Other aspects relation to policies, we know there's some level of policies around menstrual health, either integrating the education sector policies, but also standalone policies already out there that we can draw from. What is interesting is that in the world of menstrual health, interventions have been often categorized into hardware intervention and software intervention. The hardware interventions are the interventions that are mainly designed to address material needs, menstrual products or improve wash facilities. And then the software interventions are those interventions that are more looking towards improving menstrual knowledge, attitudes, and practices. And what is interesting is that how we moved from an all hardware type of approach to menstrual health to a more software type of approach. Obviously, actually to a more integrated software type of approach. And it's also important to say that when we integrate menstrual health within SRH, we require beyond these enablers to create a more holistic and synergic programs and policies. And for example, access to healthcare for girls, women, and people who menstruate or experience menstrual disorders is critical for an integrated approach, but is very much absent in terms of what has been done so far.
Renata?
Using,
just
yes?
Time management.
Yes, sure.
We have maximum 2 minutes, really maximum.
Sure, no problem. Let me go quickly then. Apologies. It's very hard. It's a lot to say, but anyway. Okay, in the next slide, you'll see the components of the integration of the technical guidance, and also the fact that the technical guidance does put a little bit of spotlight on the principle of leaving no one behind, specifically looking at people with disabilities, transgenders, and non-binary persons, as well as people in humanitarian settings. Now, we cannot go through all the sections of the technical guidance. I will highlight a few of them, precisely 3. The one on comprehensive sexuality education, where the general recommendation is to ensure that adolescent and young people have access to menstrual health education. And this is integrated within the CSE curricula in school, but also out of school. And then we have the integration of menstrual health within adolescent youth SRHR services. As you know, we've moved from youth-friendly services to a more adolescent responsive health services, health systems, and therefore this would also include clear references to menstrual health and to how to ensure that girls access the right information, the right services when it comes to menstrual health. And let me conclude with my last slide on family planning and contraceptive services, where the general recommendation is to ensure that all reproductive health and contraceptive counseling include comprehensive information on the menstrual cycle and contraception-induced menstrual bleeding as well. And unfortunately, we do not have more time, but please do access the technical guidance. We're trying as much as possible to popularize it because it's there for all the people who are interested in using it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ina.
Thank you, Renata. I posted the link to the guidance into the chat box, and we'll also share it with all registered participants later. And we really invited you because with this technical guidance, you link so perfectly to the themes of the Bodily, Autonomy and Srhr action group. And you said there are progress and there are solutions, especially on the softer side of things. And that's why we wanted to look at these now in very short snapshots. The first speaker is Hilda Alberda. I introduced, she's from Simavi in the Netherlands. And Hilda, we're curious to know from you how you link MHH with comprehensive sexuality education for young girls, adolescents, and women.
Thanks, Ina. So I'll share, building on what Renate just presented, a few examples from Simavi's programs. I'm highlighting 2 programs, and the first is quite a large youth Srhr program in 7 countries in Africa and Asia. And for that program, Simavi worked with local partners, local NGOs, to integrate menstrual health in comprehensive sexuality educations. And we did that by training the NGOs on with a comprehensive menstrual health manual, and then supported them to include that information in their activities. And we did a small qualitative evaluation on how that went and some of the key learnings. And one of the things is that NGOs experienced that menstrual health is a good entry point to start a conversation as Srhr. So they really felt like it helped. And one of the respondents said that, for example, using something as practical as a pad or different menstrual products made it easier to start a conversation and a bit more tangible for both young people and their parents. And what stood out as well was that there was actually very high demand for menstrual health related information. And I recognized that from other programs. And our coordinator in Uganda mentioned that the menstrual health session of the digital CEC package was the most watched one of all the episodes. And then something else that we found from their experience, the NGOs agreed that integrating menstrual health in CEC really contributed to realizing their program outcomes on Srhr. And they felt it's really key to properly integrate CEC. And with that, they really underlined that to have a positive effect, it's really important to have an extensive and holistic coverage of menstrual health included in CEC, as compared to before, where they only focused on products mostly, and that really left a lot of questions unanswered. So, and I wanted to share a few measurements from another program in Bangladesh, where we evaluated the impact of a comprehensive menstrual health education program that combined Srhr wash education with some hardware components and access to products. And we actually found a very positive, significant effects on girls' menstrual health, such as, for example, continence during menstruation, but also on their school attendance, which is quite a big measurement, also pointing towards gender equality. And the absence of girls who actually received interventions reduced by 20.9% compared to control group, which is huge. And that's after 2 years of medication. And we also found positive effects on a few Srhr indicators that I wanted to mention, just to point out, noting that these girls, when they were asked, were 14 and 15 years old. When asking if they had been pregnant, we found that 0.2% of the girls that actually received the interventions answered yes, against 0.6% in a control group. That might not seem like a big change, but it does actually affect quite a lot of girls, and it is a big change. And then when asking about marriage, we found that only 1.7% of girls in the intervention group confirmed to be married, against 3.3% in the control group. So there were some significant changes from the impact of the program. And these are just a few indicators that I think link menstrual health interventions as part of a broader CSE intervention to gender equality. But I think it gives a good idea of what the potential is to really go and do this. And I hope it helps you to get a bit inspired to also integrate menstrual health in your CSE programs. Thanks, Ina.
Thank you, Hilda, for the very short snapshot, but also sharing impressive results and data around this. And I want to emphasize the point that you made on it's a gateway, it's an entry point, that there's huge demand on MHH integration, and that by integrating it, you achieve better outcomes on all programmatic sides. Thank you for sharing. And if you have the reports, you can share them in the chat box as well, and we'll share them later. Moving now to Tino Vonga from PSI Zimbabwe, who's then sharing their programmatic approach on linking MHH to contraceptive services, another key action point for acceleration point for the Action Coalition. Tina, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tino from PSI Zimbabwe, Population Services International, and we're quite excited to be part of this great event to share some of the work that we are doing with adolescent girls and young women with regards to menstrual health. So as PSI Zimbabwe, in 2018, we conducted a human-centered design with adolescent girls and their influencers. From the insights that we gathered, we confirmed or what we already knew about MHM in our country, that it was a taboo topic that was not openly discussed. And usually when moms talk to their daughters about such a topic, it's done behind closed doors. And also it's in a threatening tone or in a threatening manner that if you start playing with boys, you end up falling pregnant, and it's generally linked to sexual activities. So as PSI, we took this opportunity to use menstrual health as an entry point to talk to adolescent girls about puberty, sex, pregnancy, contraception, and HIV prevention. We then went on to recruit about 23 ambassadors that work in the different communities that we work in. And these ambassadors have been conducting group sessions as well as one-on-one sessions with girls. And MHM has been our entry point, like I said. And during these discussions with girls on issues to do with menstrual hygiene, we get quite a lot of interesting questions, because girls are finally having a platform and opportunity to have someone they can actually ask those questions that really nag them about their cycle, that nag them about menstrual hygiene. And one of the most popular questions we usually get from young girls is, what is the safe period? Girls want to understand when they can have sex and not worry about falling pregnant. This is unprotected sex. And for us, we take such a question or such an opportunity to then introduce the topic on contraception, PrEP, and condoms. And we have seen an increase in the number of girls, young girls, adolescent girls, who have come through to our sites, to our outreaches to access contraceptive methods. Just between the period of October 2020 to April 2021, we managed to provide modern contraceptive methods to 8,690 girls between the ages of 15 to 19. This is compared to 3,595 that managed to access these same services between the period of October 2018 to September 2019. So this just goes to show that girls needed such an opportunity, someone to link contraception with menstrual hygiene, someone to tell them that the minute you start having your menses, it means that if you have sex with a boy, the chances of you getting pregnant are high. And how do you prevent that? How do you stop that if you're not yet ready to become a parent? And we've seen our numbers for contraception increasing month by month. We've also seen the numbers of our PrEP initiations also increasing since we introduced menstruation and since we also introduced these ambassadors. Between the period of October 2020 to April 2021, we managed to initiate 1,235 girls on PrEP. For us, these are huge figures. These are numbers that we were not able to reach before. And this has been made possible by introducing or having menstrual hygiene as an entry point when we go into the communities. Mothers open up to us better. It's easier to go into a homestead and say we want to talk about menstrual hygiene, and then find a way of weaving in contraception, HIV prevention. And also, we are also distributing menstrual cups, reusable pads, and disposable pads in the community. So in conclusion, all I can say is that for PSI Zimbabwe, taking MHM as an entry point to talk to girls has really, really helped our programming, and we are seeing the results, and our programming has benefited quite a lot. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share how we've been using MHM as an entry point to girls.
Thank you, Tino. It's again very powerful example how it strengthens impact. If you type in the chat box what PrEP means, I know like a lot of people are not from the SRHR sector and they might want to know. The third aspect that we are that the Action Coalition is addressing is norm change, and for this we want to show you as a little change of presentation a small video that has been prepared for Nepal. So we're going back to Asia. How a participatory photograph addressed deeply rooted menstrual taboos in Nepal. So I hope you enjoy this small 3-minute video. Okay, I guess my internet stopped. Did the meeting stop too? But the video stopped, right? Okay. I'm very sorry. Let me play the last, I think we're almost done. Let me play the last minutes of the video so you get to see it. So, okay. I'm very sorry. Yes, thank you very much. And apologies for this internet drop on my end, probably due to the thunderstorm. I think we really wanted to show this and to give voices to girls. And while Nepal often has very disheartening norms and social taboos, it's also such a positive note that even through this small intervention, change can happen among the girls, but also among their mothers, sisters, and the community as such. I want to then move from solution and voices to now the last block, where I want to invite Torsten Kiefer to give us a speech and his impression on where do we stand in terms of MHH progress and what's needed to scale it up.
Thank you, Ina. I think the examples we've just seen highlight that we have made progress on menstrual health and hygiene over the past years. And one other example of collective impact is Menstrual Hygiene Day. In 8 years, social media contributions have increased from 8,000 in 2014 to almost 220,000 in 2021. Online news media coverage has increased from 89 articles in 2014 to more than 8,200 this year. And what we can say is that as more young people and media are talking about menstruation in public, awareness and relevance increase and taboos and stigma are reduced. And I want to also use this opportunity to announce WASH United's commitment as part of the Generation Equality Forum. As the initiators and organizers of the Global Menstrual Hygiene Day campaign, we commit to further step up our engagement and support to partners in the period 2020 to 25 to enable MHD to collectively reach more than 500 million primarily young people with positive stigma-busting messaging around menstruation every year. But while we are making progress, overall progress remains very slow. And it remains too slow. We are not on track to create a world where no woman or girl is held back because she menstruates, a world where menstruation is no longer a barrier to gender equality by 2030. And the most important challenge we are facing collectively is lack of funding. Addressing menstruation-related challenges is not rocket science. We have the technical solutions. We have organizations working across different sectors, focusing on different aspects of the work, ready to take their action to scale. But mental health and hygiene continue to be almost absurdly underfunded. Not a single major donor has menstrual health and hygiene, an issue, as Vivian said, affecting half of the world population, as a strategic funding priority. The biggest philanthropic portfolio to date remains the $2 million per year invested by our friends from the Case for Her in the issue. Hence, we are ringing the alert to decision makers and funders here at the Generation Equality Forum. Menstrual health and hygiene is critical for achieving gender equality. We need you to step up action on the issue now. What does that concretely mean, stepping up action? It means defining measurable goals for MHH. It means setting aside dedicated budgets to achieve these goals. And with only 9 years left till 2030, it means not doing that next year. It means doing that now. It's really time for action. We still can create a world where no woman or girl is held back because she menstruates by 2030, but only if we step up investment and action now.
Thank you, Torsten. We heard your voice loud and clear. And if we see the solutions and the impact the solutions created, it's exactly what we need, the investment to make this happen. Thank you for your input and that was and sharing the commitment. The Global Menstrual Collective, who I turn over now to Therese Mahan, also made a commitment, but we also made a statement for everyone to share then with the next days. So Therese, over to you.
Thanks so much, Ina, and thanks to everybody who's joined our session today and for the wonderful speakers. It's been really brilliant to have this session ahead of the Generation Equality Forum, so that we can take our messages into the forum to advocate for investment in menstrual health and hygiene. And I think all the speakers today have really highlighted how integral menstrual health and hygiene is to achieving gender equality, and how it contributes specifically to bodily autonomy and sexual reproductive health and rights. So I don't need to go into that any further. But our statement, which we will share a link to, just outlines the key messages that you've heard today, and really clearly establishes that link of how integrating menstrual health and hygiene into the acceleration plan for gender equality and towards achieving the actions set out by the Bodily Autonomy and Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights Action Coalition are. And we've set out in our statement then what actions we feel are needed within those priorities for menstrual health and hygiene. So the first action outlined by the Action Coalition is to increase comprehensive sexuality education. And as we've heard from Simavi and others, it seems like it would be crazy to miss it out, but it is. And menstrual health and hygiene needs to be integrated within those curriculum. It's important that we provide timely information on menstruation, on the menstrual cycle, and some of the practical aspects of caring for your body during menstruation as part of that comprehensive sexuality education. The second action is to increase the quality and access to contraceptive services. And we've heard from UNFPA and PSI as well about the importance of recognizing the linkage between particularly hormonal contraception and menstrual experiences, and how that can influence the take-up and the satisfaction of contraceptive services. So again, really our action here is that information about those linkages needs to be included with the contraceptive service package. The third action of the Gender Equality Forum Action Coalition is around gender norms change and increasing knowledge of rights, and enacting policy change to promote bodily autonomy and sexual reproductive health and rights. And so, you know, underpinning a lot of the challenges that women and girls and others who menstruate face around achieving menstrual health and hygiene are these deep-rooted taboos and menstrual stigma. And so our action here is to accelerate efforts at all levels to tackle these taboos and stigma around the menstrual cycle, and to promote the integration of menstrual health and hygiene into national policies. And finally, the fourth action of the Action Coalition is around strengthening networks and movements to promote bodily autonomy and sexual reproductive health and rights. And here, the coalition's the very powerful movement for menstrual health and hygiene, which has seen such great momentum over the last few years, stands by the movement for gender equality and contributes towards that. And that's our final contribution to those actions as well. And beyond that, the Global Menstrual Collective, through its members and collective efforts, also has made our commitment to the Generation Equality Forum. And we have just finalised a 5-year strategy of collective evidence-based advocacy to influence the integration of menstrual health and hygiene into policies, programmes, services and budgets, so that that investment can flow. And specifically, some of the deliverables that we are committed to are providing resources to show the contributions of menstrual health and hygiene to relevant SDGs, to influence investment, to undertake baseline research on spending on menstrual health and hygiene, because currently the levels of investment are not visible, and to track progress against them, to develop a set of metrics for menstrual health and hygiene across sectors that can support the monitoring and accountability of how menstrual health and hygiene is being delivered through those investments. And also, we've recognized from many there's a need for greater evidence for the outcomes of menstrual health and hygiene, good practice in menstrual health and hygiene. And one of our action groups has led on identifying the priority evidence requirements of stakeholders. We're also committed to supporting and facilitating spaces for engagement of champions. And finally, of course, our advocacy, including this event itself. So, and we look forward to joining with others to deliver on these commitments. Thank you.
Thank you, Therese. We will do as a follow-up, share what you read, the actions with all participants, hopefully by the end of today, so that you have enough time to spread this message throughout the next days of the Generation Equality Forum. That's a commitment from me as a moderator to you. We are very, very good in time. And first of all, I want to thank all presenters who have managed to share their passion and insights into such a short time. Of course, we could have done it much longer, but we wanted to be really brief and short. As I mentioned, we will send the recording and all links to all of you registered participants. If you have any questions to the speakers, please share. We still stay on for another 5 to 10 minutes, so so they are able to answer them. I'm also glad that you shared like general information about your work in the chat box. Here, I'm just picking up, and before I pick up the next question, I just sharing hereby our contact details as well. If you want to engage in the Global Menstrual Collective or in Menstrual Hygiene Day platform, you also can contact us. So I'm just picking up one of the questions that came up here, and thank you for raising that, Srhr. It's about disposal of sanitary napkins in rural areas. Is there experience from the speakers here that can share with Srhr some of the solutions that are out there? Maybe from the speakers, but also if there's someone from the participants who is able to answer, you can also raise your hand through the reactions. Then Mariana. Okay, so I'm just reading out just assigning a few questions. For example, what are the practical steps that the MH community needs to take to engage international donors to commit to funding for menstrual health? And I think this is a question to you, Therese. Maybe you can answer this. So first, Mariana, but please have a short answer to us.
Hi, thank you so much. A really brief answer. So my name is Mariana Lopez. I have a PhD from the University of Manchester. And I actually focus my research in trying to understand the environmental impacts of the disposal of menstrual products. And as part of this project, I looked at how taboos shape the way in which women dispose of these products. And my objective was to truly understand what are the behavioral dynamics behind accessibility. So once we get to the point where women have access to products, what happens with them? And I found very interesting dynamics, from the fact that they burn them in their backyards, to the fact that they wrap them in plastic. And the problem is that in a lot of developing countries, women lack accessibility to sanitation systems. in many instances, when they work as waste pickers, they're also exposed to this kind of waste. I guess in a nutshell, taboos also shape disposal, and we need to think about about the whole process in a holistic manner. Again, how this ties into the whole reproductive issue, but also the impact on the environment. And I'm more than happy to share my research, and hoping that this will be of interest to some people in the panel.
Thank you, Mariana. Looping it back to the norm change. Yeah, please type in your contacts in the chat box so Srhr can contact you. And I think we have another, Srhr, if you're based in India, there's the Menstrual Health Alliance India, who has extremely good knowledge on all the disposal and waste management options. Therese, do you want to answer to the question of Laurie around engaging international donors? Oh, I need to unmute you. Okay.
Thanks, Ina. Yes, I mean, just a few points that I can quickly think of. I mean, I think fundamentally it's important. We heard the voices from adolescent girls in Nepal, and raising those voices, collecting evidence to share that this is a priority and a challenge for women and girls and other people who menstruate, and putting those priorities within advocacy, integrating menstrual health and hygiene within proposals, whether that's for girls' education, whether it's a WASH proposal. I think, donors need to see that this is a demand from the communities they want to reach and from the partners that they work with. So we need to get it in there and in front of them, joining together to advocate and lobby for more investment as part of the Global Menstrual Collective or Menstrual Hygiene Day or other regional and national coalitions, and also documenting and monitoring your own work to show the effectiveness, to show what works, and to demonstrate the impact of menstrual health and hygiene as well are important actions that we can all take.
Thank you, Therese. And yeah, I want to encourage everyone to be part of these networks and platforms because, yeah, the theme, for example, this year's Menstrual Hygiene Day was we need more action investment in MHH. And if we all raise the voices and engage, I think it's a push and pull with some of the donors. Where we can make some progress. It's going to be hard giving the different priorities, but yeah, Therese, you made the right point of we need also some experience and data, and I think today showed how really MHH is so relevant and impactful. I'm looking at another question. Okay. Across the world. Jackie mentioned there's an inequity in coverage across the world in terms of representation. More work is needed. We totally agree. Often it's a language and time zone issues, but there is a Pacific network on menstrual hygiene. Jackie, I don't know if you're part of it, but if you want to be connected, let me know and we can connect you. They're actually really active and moving forward. But it's agreed they need to be part of this solution. And maybe one last question. Okay, so yeah, Nikita, I think you're right, and also Meenakshi. I think when we speak about right-based angle, we definitely have to look at all people who menstruate, and in this, I think, yeah, we tend to shorten here women and girls, but we really acknowledge that all people who menstruate and also across the life cycle. I think that's another really key point of the menstrual health definition, that we unearthed this, and this also definitely links then to other themes of the Generation Equality Forum, where it's really about feminist movement, about gender identity and rights as well. So today we couldn't focus on this issue, why we would have loved to, because we picked very short, but yeah, I think the point is taken. We're now at 2 p.m. and I would like to officially close this session. You will hear from us later today with a recording and all the resources and the links and contacts. And I really want to thank again the speakers and to provide this input. I want to thank Odette and Therese, who helped also in the preparation of this event. And with that, I wish you a great week ahead, and please continue to advocate loud and clear for the integration of menstrual health and hygiene into the Generation Equality Forum's outcomes and session wherever you are, because it matters. Thank you so much and have a good rest of the day.